Good evening, my name's Toby Mesme. This is MesmePolitics. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to a brand new week, Monday, 25th of January 2021. Just gone 7 p.m. Get in touch in the chat and comment and communicate throughout. We are with you for the next half hour, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from that unique leftist perspective that you only get right here. Another edition of MesmePolitics. Thank you for choosing us for your Monday evening. Before the end of the show, I want to talk to you about the economic woes that the Conservative Party faces and why they may not measure up to the challenges ahead, and why that may be Labour's route back in out of the cold. Also want to talk to you about Gordon Brown proclaiming that Britain is in danger of becoming, quote, a failed state. There's an incoming February impeachment trial for now ex-President Trump. Will he be convicted? What does it all mean for the incoming civil war within the GOP? We discuss. But now, at the top of the hour, our top story of the day, and the government will look at the possibility of lifting some restrictions in England from mid-February. Boris Johnson has said, although he confirmed the government was looking at tougher measures on traveller quarantine. The Prime Minister suggested the government would examine the data in the run-up to the 15th of February review date to see if some restrictions could be lifted, including the return of pupils, but refused to commit to them being back to school before the Easter holidays, saying the 1 to 4 groups are going to be vaccinated by the 15th of February. Before then, we will be looking at the potential of relaxing some measures. I do think now that this massive achievement has been made of rolling out the vaccination programme, I think people want to see us making sure we don't throw that away by having a premature relaxation and then another big surge of infection. I totally understand the frustrations of parents. I really thank teachers for what they're doing, the immense efforts they're going to teach kids online, and the government has provided a lot of laptops. I know that's no substitute for direct face-to-face learning. Believe me, there's nothing I want more than to reopen schools. I've fought to keep schools open for as long as I possibly could. We want to see schools back as fast as possible. We want to do that in a way that is consistent with fighting the epidemic and keeping the infection rate down.
We're going to be looking at where we've got to on the 15th of February, where, as you know, we hope to have vaccinated about 15 million people across the whole of the UK. The JCVI groups 1 to 4, the real priority groups, will be deciding before then whether we can be getting schools back. But I can tell you that daily we're looking at the data and trying to work out when we're going to be able to lift restrictions. Schools obviously will be a priority, but I don't think anybody would want to see the restrictions lifted so quickly whilst the rate of infection is still very high. The JCVI groups 1 to 4 are going to be vaccinated by the 15th of February. Before then, we'll be looking at the potential of relaxing some measures.
So, there's a lot to say on this. The Conservative Party, the government in this country, appears to have turned into, debased itself into, becoming a literal death cult. Right? And I don't say that lightly. We are seeing, again and again, mistakes being repeated. And now, we're hearing contemplation. It all sounded sensible, but now we're hearing contemplation of not only relaxing on the 15th of February, relaxing before the 15th of February. It's so out there, I can't quite believe it's real. Literally just when they seemed to have begun to see sense, it looked like they were going to be pragmatic and sensible with schools, open them when the evidence suggested it would be safe, and rightfully prioritising it but not pushing too hard, while at the same time being cautious on the easing of lockdown restrictions. Now, they upset, well, we know what happened. They upset the ERG. They're not the ERG, what are they called this time? Is it the CRG? Is that one of them? whichever one, the segment of the ERG that's turned into the Lockdown Skeptic organisation, which I do normally know the name of, but it seems to have slipped my mind tonight. That one had a go at Johnson. Steve Baker got on his soapbox, had a go at Johnson, and now he's scared. So he's decided to capitulate. So we have a government ad hoc in the pocket of extremely right-wing libertarian fanatics who are going to inadvertently bring about the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people through their careless approach to locking down. I mean, just what we need to see from the government is we need to see them be tough. We need to see a zero COVID strategy. We need to see sufficient economic support for those facing restrictions. We're not going to see any of that. But if we want to get this goddamn virus suppressed, that is what we need to see. And I will not stop saying that. I've been saying that consistently. I've been saying it all month. I was saying it right through December. We need to see a zero COVID strategy for Britain. Even more crucial in light of the variants and the potential for them to be vaccine busting. Change my mind, because I don't think there's anything other than that stands. Let's have a listen to Boris Johnson on Scotland.
This country is going through a pandemic. The whole UK is going through a pandemic. I think what the people of the Kingdom want to see is everybody focusing on beating that pandemic, which we are, rolling out the vaccine and getting ready to bounce back from that pandemic and have the strongest possible economic recovery. That's the priority for the whole of the United Kingdom. I think people also can see everywhere in the UK the visible benefits of our wonderful union. A vaccine programme that is being rolled out by an NHS, a national health service, a vaccine that was developed in labs in Oxford and is being administered by the British Army. So I think the strengths and advantages of the union speak for themselves.
That's Boris Johnson there. And it comes in the wake of Douglas Ross, the Scottish Tory leader, saying his party would boycott a Scottish independence referendum set up without the approval of Westminster. Ross said Scottish National Party proposals for Holyrood to empower itself to stage a fresh referendum if Nicola Sturgeon's party wins a majority in May's election should not be seen as credible or legitimate. He said anything that constitutes an unofficial referendum should be boycotted. It shouldn't be given any credibility. It is again a divisive tactic by the SNP to split the country apart. I would take no part in that, and I would hope anyone, not just unionist supporters, but people who support democracy, should not take part in these wildcat unofficial referendums. So yes, I make that plea to Scottish Labour, the Scottish Liberal Democrats, and anyone who believes in democracy in Scotland. Would you have a look at the irony of that statement right there from Douglas Ross? The establishment, the UK political establishment will fight Scottish independence tooth and nail. They know there is a grassroots political groundswell for it, and they don't like it because they can't control it. They can't control what direction Scotland is going to go. It could go in a corporatist right-wing direction, but equally, this is the thing that scares the pants off them, maybe it won't. That's what they're worried about. This is, the SNP are not that anti-establishment a party, but this, Indy itself, scares the UK establishment so much, and it shows they will fight it tooth and nail, to the extent that I think the default position for anyone on the left has to be, what are they fighting against? We've got to be on the opposite side of that, of the establishment on that battle. We just have to be. The Scottish people have the right to hold that referendum, in my view, if the SNP win a clear majority of the public's votes in Scotland. The government, the Westminster government, ideally should obviously give up that power, hand it over to them. This whole process is going to debase itself into carnage if you have Boris Johnson denying the will of the majority of the Scottish people. There will be a groundswell, there will be tensions, it will be a nightmare. Why would we want that? The way to deal with this peacefully is to let the referendum take course, or very extreme forces on both ends of the spectrum are going to start conflicting, and, it could turn violent, right? If if Boris Johnson denies the Scottish people their own democratic rights. That's the concern. That's why I think the sensible thing for unionists would be allowing the Scottish people to hold the referendum and fighting it in good faith. Quick listen to Piers Morgan with the Work and Pensions Secretary, Theresa Coffey. She walked out, air quotes, from Good Morning Britain when scrutinised. Have a listen.
I also need to point out that you started this in too late. Unfortunately, I have to go to other broadcasters as well. And I wish that we'd had more time when we were.
Well, you can come back anytime. We haven't seen you.
I appreciate that.
I haven't interviewed you since May, so you can come back anytime. It was you that boycotted the programme, right? So please don't play. Please don't play the "you haven't given me enough time" card, because we gave you 8 months and you didn't turn up.
Let me ask you this. Much for this. Yeah, but we were due to start at 8:15.
I understand it.
I'm really excited about the opportunities to kickstart for young people.
I understand.
But I'm sorry, Piers. I'm going to have to go to another broadcaster.
I just wanted you to clarify, given you said I was insulting.
Piers, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go.
You're going to go. You're not going to explain why you think I was the one insulting.
We've already had 20 minutes of my time. I appreciate your time as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Miss Coffey.
She hung up there. I mean, just the sheer arrogance. The minute they're subject to any degree of scrutiny, any modicum of a shed of scrutiny from someone like Piers Morgan, off they go. Off they go. Bolts. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. These are the people leading the country in the middle of this crisis. Horrendous. Right? Absolutely horrendous. You can't think of anything worse. Right. Over to the United States. And lawmakers on Sunday burrowed into dueling positions over the impending impeachment trial of former President Donald Trump, deepening the schisms in an already divided Senate a day before the House will deliver its charge to lawmakers there. Senator Mitt Romney of Utah, the only Republican who voted to convict Mr. Trump in his first impeachment trial, said on Sunday that he believed the former president had committed an impeachable offence and that the effort to try him, even after he left office, was very much constitutional, saying, "I believe that what is being alleged and what we saw, which is incitement to insurrection, is an impeachable offence. If not, what is?" But even as Mr. Romney signalled his openness to convicting Mr. Trump, other Senate Republicans made clear that they opposed even the idea of a trial and would try to dismiss the charge before it began. Taken together, the comments underscored the rift that the riot at the Capitol on January the 6th and the ensuing fallout had created in the Republican conference, as senators weighed whether they would pay a steeper political price for breaking with the former president or for failing to break with the former president. This, as we do see Republicans softening in their approach, a lot of them seem to have fallen in line. There's talk of unity, there's talk of papering over the cracks, and they're looking much more unified than it looked like they would be at this point. The Biden administration coming in and doing a couple of things through executive order seems to have motivated the GOP to coalesce around its good old death cult ways of opposing things to do with basic human rights and or the habitability of the planet going forward. So they have fallen in line. Division could yet be sown to an extreme extent, particularly if Trump forms another party. There's been talk of that. Apparently he's been talked down from the prospect of forming a breakaway party, but those sort of divisions within the party, between the moderate Republicans that are dying out and the MAGA hats that are growing in strength and number, could ruin Republicans' 2022 hopes, right, for retaking one or both congressional chambers. The thing standing in their way is the unity question. If they can't unify, that's how they lose. You know, Democrats can weaponize a lot of this. They can weaponize the division. They can weaponize the image of Trump, his unpopularity, and the assault on the Capitol, and all these things to hit back against incumbent Republicans in the 2022 midterms. Another thing that indicate that while the conventional wisdom indicates Republicans will do very well, maybe even wipe out Democrats in the 2022 midterms, there are plenty of unique factors that could, cause a surprise upset where Democrats hold their own or maybe even make gains. But it all depends on a number of factors, many of them not in Democrats' control. It depends on how badly Republicans have shot themselves in the foot. And we always seem to overestimate how badly they've shot themselves in the foot and they recover, right? Remember, they made phenomenal gains, considering where they were polling in the House in 2020. And they're looking to take back the House. Have a listen to Kevin McCarthy, the leader. This is a report from MSNBC. The leader, the House Minority Leader, the man who wants to be Speaker in 2 years' time. Have a listen to him appearing to basically walk back his criticism of Trump as the Republican Party falls in line.
When it comes to the impeachment trial, let's take a look at some of the arguments that we are hearing from Senate Republicans so far. Listen.
Well, first of all, I think the trial is stupid. I think it's counterproductive. We already have a flaming fire in this country, and it's like taking a bunch of gasoline and pouring it on top of the fire.
A trial after the president has left office is beyond the Senate's constitutional authority. I think a lot of Americans are going to think it's strange that the Senate is spending its time trying to convict and remove from office a man who left office a week ago.
Do you believe Donald Trump committed an impeachable offense?
To begin with, I think it's a moot point, because I think right now Donald Trump is no longer the president. He is a former president.
Yes, but they're trying to prevent him from running again because he committed crimes against our country and incited a riot on the Capitol and all that. But let's just put it aside. Then there's House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy doing his best to have his cake and eat it too. Let's go through his waffling. On January 8th, Punchbowl News reported that McCarthy got into a, quote, screaming match with President Trump, called on him to release a statement denouncing that mob that stormed the Capitol. He stood up. On January 12th, Axios reported that in a tense phone call with Trump, McCarthy told the president that it wasn't Antifa at the Capitol. He said, quote, "It's MAGA. I know. I was there." And here's what McCarthy said on January 13th.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
Yes, correct. But then after, just a week after saying the president bears responsibility for the Capitol attack, McCarthy said this.
Leader McConnell has said that former President Trump and other important people provoked those folks to come to the Capitol. Do you believe that former President Trump provoked?
I don't believe he provoked if you listen to what he said at the rally.
So there you go. I think the most healthy thing would to see the most forgot how to speak for a minute. The best thing for America and for moving forward would be to see a bipartisan conviction vote. 17 Republicans on board. That'd be great. I don't think it's necessarily likely, but that would be the ideal course of action. Let's see the guy repudiated, and then our role as leftists is to highlight how he is a mere symptom of a much broader corrupt political system, and open up that broader discussion about how they're all pretty depraved, how much sketchy dealing goes on, how much corruption there is on both sides of the aisle, and open up that broader discussion, and the catalyst of that is the impeachment of Trump, right? Why not? And a quick reminder before we move back to the UK on everyone sort of fawning a little bit over the incoming Biden administration. There's always that, not the incoming, the new Biden administration. Got to get used to saying that. Joe Biden's president now. Who'd have believed it? We get into, and I've fallen prey to this as well, sort of being like, oh, look, this is good, let's get a bit excited. A pipeline's been scrapped. No, in reality, we are still dealing with a centre-right administration that's being pushed a little bit more of a progressive direction economically, at home, purely because of the crisis it faces. It may be better than the Obama administration. It's still neoliberalism. The only way we'll get any of these things we hope are going to happen out of this administration is by being very, very critical of the thing and shaming and pushing them to do things. That's the only way they'll do anything for the people. Your latest death statistics on COVID from the UK today.
The daily coronavirus data has just been published by the government, showing the UK has reported 22,195 new cases of coronavirus today. That is down from 30,004 reported yesterday. In terms of the number of new deaths, and those are deaths within 28 days of a positive coronavirus test, 592 new deaths have been recorded, down slightly from 610 on Sunday. 6.6 million people have now received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in the UK.
Now, I want to open up a really interesting discussion here. It's about economics. It's about levelling up. So, the economic impact of COVID will leave Boris Johnson's government with a costly double challenge: to level up the North and Midlands while protecting the affluent towns and cities in southern England suffering most job losses, according to a report. Warning that the Prime Minister's election promise to rebalance Britain's lopsided economy has been made 4 times harder by the pandemic, the Centre for Cities said a dual approach to the post-COVID recovery was required. At the same time, the Bank of England must do more to ensure a green recovery from COVID-19, as current emergency finance measures have not carried conditions relating to greenhouse gas emissions. That's according to an influential committee of MPs. The Environmental Audit Committee has written to Andrew Bailey, the Governor of the Bank of England, urging him to force large companies receiving millions of pounds in taxpayer money to publish information on their exposure to climate-related risks. Such disclosures are not yet mandatory, but have been recommended by the former bank governor, Mark Carney. Well, Labour has a huge opportunity when it comes to levelling up the economy. It has a unique opportunity that this crisis inadvertently has landed in Keir Starmer's lap. Look at it like this, right? There are lots of things required to truly level up, to truly make that impact felt in communities. You know, a bit of spending here or there in key constituencies might have helped the Tories coast through before this crisis. Now it won't. The damage is now even more terminal than it was before. And the effort required, the things required, are things that the Tories, on an ideological basis, will never shape up to the level of ambition required to do, right? The only party that can truly level up Britain is Labour. And Labour can only do that and can only offer that if it has the sufficient courage to see the Tories and go, no, we're going bigger, we're spending more, we're thinking more radical, rather than sort of shrinking away and talking about balancing the books. Because shrinking away and balancing the books is not ever going to get Labour into 10 Downing Street. We need to see an industrial strategy in this country, something we haven't seen for decades. We need to see investment, state-led growth right across the country, powering the industries of the future. Green tech, science, innovation. We need to see a massive expansion of public services, a universal basic income, all these things handing power directly to communities and all being managed at a local level with the maximum democracy possible. Expanding democracy in the workplace, all these things, right? The Tories can't do that. Labour can. Now, Labour's path to 10 Downing Street at the next election is really narrow. It's really perilous. But that path doesn't exist unless Labour focuses on levelling up, but levelling up to a degree more radical, more ambitious and more progressive than any Tory government, no matter its pragmatism, could ever hope to achieve. This isn't dogma, this isn't ideology, this is the pragmatic way forward in the 21st century. Those that say this is not what we need to do, or we can't do this, or it costs too much, or it's unrealistic, are the real ideologues, right? If we want smart policy making for the 21st century, we have to think a lot bigger than we're thinking right now. That's not even anti-capitalist. That's not socialist. That's not communist. That's common sense. That's what we have to do. The job of Labour is to convince people they can actually deliver it, because then they have a winning coalition on their hands. And finally today, the UK is at risk of becoming a failed state and breaking up. unless there are deep reforms of the way the country is governed, the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has said, writing in the Daily Telegraph, saying, "I believe the choice is now between a reformed state and a failed state. It is indeed Scotland, where dissatisfaction is so deep that it threatens the end of the United Kingdom." This morning, on the Today programme, he said, "I do think Boris Johnson has not quite understood how deep the resentment is, how the lack of trust is causing him a problem about his acceptability in different parts of the country." Also saying, you've got not only the Scottish First Minister, but you've got the regional mayors saying they are not consulted and listened to. You've got the Welsh First Minister saying their letters are not even replied to by Boris Johnson. You've got no mechanism, no forum for coordinating the regions and nations, and I think that the public are fed up. He called for a fundamental constitutional change led by a commission on democracy to review the way the whole United Kingdom is governed, saying you can't have the elites talking to the elites, you've got to involve the people in what you are talking about. And they've got views now on how the pandemic was dealt with, how the recession has been dealt with, saying in the Telegraph, no country can have national integration without political inclusion. And the Commission might start by learning the experience of countries like Australia, Canada, Germany and America, where partly because of British influence in times past, second chambers are senates of their regions, and minorities who can easily be outvoted are guaranteed a stronger vote. So, well, first thing, my message to Gordon Brown on this, if anyone's listening, is, and they're not, is you only realise this now? Really? You only realise we're a failed state now? We've been going down that road for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. We're really there now, and it'll only intensify. I mean, the union's beyond saving. Let's just talk about being a normal country and having some decent public services, right? Before we start talking about all the rest of it. Many of his proposals seem pretty sensible here. The thing we forget is Gordon Brown is part of the problem. He's made plenty of promises to the Scottish people, and they were never followed through upon. He is the epitome of the Westminster establishment that Scottish voters so despise. So, you know, I prefer Gordon Brown's rare interventions to Tony Blair's rare interventions, purely because Gordon Brown is a little bit less of a murderous maniac. But I don't really see much there, much to work with. Maybe it's just the issue of the messenger. I don't know. Before we close, take a listen to Matt Hancock talking about vaccinating octogenarians.
It's a really emotional moment when people get vaccinated. It means so much to people because this vaccine brings safety to that individual and it marks the route out for us all from this pandemic. And I'm very proud to be able to tell you that as of last night, we have vaccinated 78.7% of all over 80s. That's almost 4 in 5 of everyone aged over 80. And I'm delighted that you can see from these figures that there's so much enthusiasm for vaccination amongst the over 80s because octogenarians know what scientists know, which is that the vaccine saves lives. It's a really emotional moment when people...
Okay, so, that's right. I mean, it's good. It's good. We're on to 78.7%, as he says, of all over 80s being vaccinated. The rollout moves ahead apace. We will be back, same time, same place tomorrow. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and get notifications on. Don't forget to like the video. On Twitter, I am at TobyJoshuaUK, and my twice daily 2-minute reads are available on Medium at TobyJoshuaPolitics. Thanks for listening. It'll be busy as ever tomorrow. That's your Monday. Enjoy your Tuesday. I'll see you at the end of it.